welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. So finding the needle in the click stack, real engagement in video ads, this is what we're talking about today. And it's all about how we can actually find real engagement in today's mobile video ads. By the way, who attended the previous session, the Moloko session? Here, we have a few people. So you probably saw some of this as well there when they were talking about incrementality and so on. So we're gonna touch upon some similar topics, but from a different angle, okay? So a little bit about ourselves, about Kayzen. We're a mobile programmatic DSP. We're built to empower performance marketers. We work, we empower agencies, networks, apps, media buyers, e-commerce, and brands. Myself, Tomás Yacachury. I've been in the industry for about 6 years, focused on supply partnerships, managing programmatic supply, doing research, writing reports, articles, participating in webinars, whatever. If you see me around, then great. And if anyone knows me, you probably know that I'm a sucker for a good pun, and hence the name of the session today. Cool, let's move on because we have a lot of content today. First of all, the click stack. What do we mean by the click stack? Of course, this is a reference to the haystack, right, in the haystack, but really we're talking about the pile of clicks that we currently experience, right, in video ads, and it's usually expressed as very high CTRs, right? When we look at CTR's evolution over the past years, we see that they have skyrocketed. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, in an interstitial video, you would get, a CTR of maybe 10 to 20% at most, right? But over the past year, especially in early 2023, we see click-through rates start to go up and up. And especially in iOS today, right, it's not that strange to get click-through rates close to 80% or even above. I'm not going to call any names on the SSPs here, but you can see that nowadays there's some SSPs that for iOS, right, they have like very, very high click-through rates. So very, very high. The question is, why is this happening? What is the incentive behind this? And what is actually driving this? And the main driver for increased click-through rates in programmatic, and I'm talking about programmatic because as a DSP, that's what we have visibility on. But really, if you work with a network, any like non-programmatic means, the same is happening. Even networks started with this even before then programmatic exchanges. So really what's driving the increased click-through rates is a shift in the video rendering experiences, right? The first shift that we experienced was moving from a CTA button clickable area to a full screen clickable area, right? Before, when you were shown an ad, if you wanted to click on the ad, you had to click on the CTA button. If you clicked anywhere else, nothing would happen, right? And now, a couple of years ago, we moved on to full screen clickable areas, right? So it doesn't matter where you click, you're always going to get redirected to the App Store, the landing page, or whatever. Another change that we started seeing was iterations around the skip button and the skip delay, right? So skip button started changing location, upper right, upper left. It started changing size, and that's a huge factor for accidental clicks, right? So there's a few exchanges that have like really, really small skip buttons that it's just impossible to touch upon it with a finger, right? You need like an actual needle to click on that. And also we see variation in the skip delay, right? How long do you have to see the video in order for it to become skippable, especially in interstitial, right? So you can see that, for example, for Charbus, you're usually getting 3 seconds, 5 seconds for Bungle. 5 seconds is probably the industry standard nowadays, like everyone's doing 5 seconds, but there are a few exceptions as we see. For example, Uplovin, usually up to 8 seconds. All of these are driving click-through rates up. Why? Because if you have like a very small skip button, and you have a full screen clickable area, it maximizes the chances of getting accidental clicks, right? Another thing, and one of the main reasons why iOS started increasing more than Android in terms of click-through rates is the introduction of SK overlay, right? For anyone unfamiliar with SK overlay, the SK overlay is a native banner, right, experience that is displayed on top of your ad, right, which has the app name, the icon, and usually a CTA, right? And if you click on the CTA, the app will download in the background, and you're never taken away from the ad experience. So it provides, from a user experience perspective, it's really good. But what is the problem with SK overlay, and why is it driving clicks up? Mainly because the clicks that are happen on the overlay, right, actually cannot be registered by ad exchanges and ad networks, right? So that creates an incentive it's only registered by Apple, so it's useful for SKAd network attribution. But when it comes to MMP attribution, it becomes impossible to track the clicks. So what we see is an incentive from certain players to actually fire clicks automatically at that instance, right, when the SK overlay is shown, just to ensure that they are securing that MMP attribution. Another thing that we started seeing was the introduction of what we call double end cards. Some players also call it like the triple page experience, right? Which is like you show a video, after the video, you have the end card, and when you skip the end card, you actually get shown another end card, very simple, just an app icon, the app name, and a CTA button, right? So it's another instance for the user to interact with your ad and hopefully get another click, whether it's accidental or actually intentional. So what is the impact that this has in attribution, right? So what you guys were probably seeing before with Vicky, right, is that, let's imagine a situation where you have view-through attribution turned off, right? And you have a click happening in the 7-day attribution window. You have an impression happening in the 1-day attribution window. The click is going to win that attribution. Now, in the case where you have VTA turned on and the click is outside its corresponding attribution window, the impression is going to win that attribution. But what happens when VTA is off, right, and you have a click within the attribution window, and when I say a click here, I'm talking about an actual click. This is a user that actually clicked with intent, right? It's not an accidental click. It's an actual click. It's a click with intent. But you also have an impression that is actually outside its corresponding attribution window. But with 70% plus CTR, 7 out of 10 times, this impression will have a click. And that's either an accidental click, it's an automatically fired click, but it's a click in the end for attribution purposes, right? That impression is actually going to win the attribution in this case, right? And that has a bit of problems, as was mentioned before, right? Because it introduces cannibalization of other channels or subsidization of organics, right? So here the whole incrementality topic comes to play. One thing that I want to highlight, which I think was actually pretty cool, it was a pretty good idea, but we still need to see further adoption on this. Like last year, for example, AppsFlyer tried to introduce an additional layer on their overall attribution hierarchy by introducing other types of engagements beyond the impression and the click. So we had the engaged click, the engaged view, right? And I think this is where we need to start thinking, right? How can we measure engagement beyond just a plain impression, just a plain click, right? And especially when the click is not necessarily tied to intent nowadays. And that's what we're going to try to solve. So this is a shout out to AppsFlyer for working on introducing this. Hopefully we see more adoption to this in the future. This is not sponsored by AppsFlyer, by the way. It's just I legitimately value this. Cool. So how do we see this impact on the full screen clickable and the small skip buttons? How do we actually see this on the ad, right? And what we actually did here was we embedded an ad into an HTML, right? An HTML is an interactive ad, so you're actually able to track every interaction that user has with your ad, right? So in this case, we can actually build heat maps because we're able to track not only the position of the interaction, but actually the timestamp as well, right? So we're able to see where have users clicked, and you can see that there's a high concentration of users that clicked on the CTA button, right? We can consider those intentional clicks. We also have a couple of clicks happening on red, the red bird, right, from Angry Birds. You can consider this probably intentional clicks as well. It's just like maybe it's more of an engaged click in the sense that it's very likely that the user thought this was a playable experience and they were trying to interact with the bird, and actually it was just a static image, right? And then you have a very high concentration of clicks happening around the skip button. These are usually accidental clicks, right, that have a very high density, and they drive installs, right? But you can see that the relationship between the percentage of installs that they drive and the share of clicks that they represent, it's much different, right? Here, 58% of installs are driven by this 5% of intentional clicks. And what is interesting to see is that when you use interactive ad experience, such as this HTML embedding that allows you to do the heat map analysis, is that you can actually start seeing stuff like this. So for example, here we see the concentration of the interactions on the x-axis, right? Where in the positions. You can see that most of the interactions are concentrated on the right side. That's because it corresponds to the skip button position, right? And they also concentrate on the upper side, right? That's usually where and you can see that every interaction outside of the skip button area is actually a click, right? The dark green are actual clicks. This is a user that clicked and actually was redirected. Whereas on the other ones, you have a combination of actual clicks, which are actually accidental clicks, as we've seen. But also you have tabs that have no click redirect. Those are the instances where the user tapped on the skip button and actually touched the skip button. So you can see that's actually a high percentage of interactions that actually resulted in an accidental click. And one more important thing is, like, for example, you can see with the timestamp, right? You can see that the vast majority of interactions start after the 5-second mark. And the reason behind that is because the skip delay, the standard skip delay, this is on actually digital turbine exchange, and the skip delay is 5 seconds. So you actually can see in the data of this interactive ad, you can actually see that manifest, right? Most of the interactions are happening at the 5-second mark, which is the time when the skip button appears. So why am I showing all this? Beyond, I mean, first of all, it looks cool, I think, right? But because I wanted to show you what you can actually do with interactive ads. And what we did at Kayzen was actually try to iterate upon this and try to find solutions for advertisers to really be able to find real engagement in this sea of clicks that we're seeing, right? And hence, the finding the needle aspect of the presentation, right? So we developed a solution that we call Video Plus, right? And Video Plus, what it does, it combines video with interactive end cards, right? And the interactive end card actually allows you to deliver an experience that the user is able to interact with, and you're actually able to track every single interaction on that, right? And learn from your users that way. By the way, you may want to have your phones ready. There's a whole bunch of QR codes that you can test here, and we actually have a quiz in the end where you will need your phone, so make sure you have those ready. So, for example, on the video ad, which is usually what we're all used to, you can track the traditional performance metrics such as number of impressions, the viewability rate, the video completion rate, right? The VAST protocol on video allows you to track when the video starts, when the user has seen 25% of the video, half the video, 75%, or the video complete, right? You can actually check the click-through rates, right? Which, yeah, sure, we can test that. We already understand that there's problems with clicks as an actual engagement metric. And then, of course, all the post-install conversion data that you may have. But now with adding an interactive end card to that, you can actually measure how much did the user engage with your end card. You can measure, if your interactive end card has some sort of flow, like a quiz that we're showing here, you can see, okay, how many users actually completed the quiz, went all the way to the quiz. You can see the session duration, how long did they stay on the ad. You can see the whole complete conversion rate, right? And now we're going to see a few examples of these interactive end cards that we're presenting to you. So here you have a couple examples. You can scan the QR code, pick the one that you like the most, and it's actually a full interactive experience that you can actually test if you want to. But you can see that we have quiz templates, we have a scratch, kind of like a scratch card template, we have a chat template, right? We have a gallery, we have a shop template. So it really applies to a lot of different use cases, and whether you're gaming, non-gaming, or even like a brand, you can actually leverage all of this to learn more about your users. And I'm going to show you in a minute how we actually did this with a couple of examples. First of all, which I think it's one of the coolest one, it's smart ad sequencing, right? This is what the first use case that we already discussed one use case with the heat map, really, but this is the second one, which is smart ad sequencing, right? It's how can we use this interactive end cards and leverage all the data points that we pick from users to actually sequentially target these users and drive them through the conversion funnel, right? So for example, we can start with just showing an introduction video to the brand, and also, let's say, for example, a video plus chat experience, right? Where we can measure the level of engagement to the user, right? And how do we measure an engaged user? For example, we can measure, hey, if we're showing an interstitial video, hey, these are skippable formats. So if we have any user that actually watched the video to its completion, right? We can consider that an engaged user. And also we can see if there's any user that actually interacted with the chatbot in any sort of way, right? So we're able to track all of that. They do not depend on the click, right? They do not depend on the click, and we can track all of that with them. So we have identified a subset of users that have been exposed to this ad that are actually engaged. And now we can say, okay, we will retarget them, right, with a new ad, right, that maybe adds some additional information on the video. But now it has, for example, a quiz template, video plus quiz, right? And here, users can answer the quiz, and you can actually see for each user what answers they provided. And if you're very clever with the way that you put together the quiz, you can actually use this to segment your users, right? And understand like your different user clusters that you may have, right? So that's the second step. And the final step is like take them the full way to conversion, right? Let's say, for example, using the Video Plus coupon scratch, right? Which is like, okay, I'm gonna send a targeted ad to those users that engage with the 2 previous experiences. And not only that, I'm gonna hit them with a very customized interactive experience that is tailored towards their preferences based on what I learned on the quiz. So this is one good example of how you can leverage this. Another example, a bit of the benefits on this. Higher engagement, of course, users see a logical progression of messages rather than the same ad repeatedly, right? You're showing them different messages, and they're becoming more and more personalized as you move them through the conversion funnel. Better retention, of course, and optimized spend. You're not just spending nilly-willy, but you're actually spending intelligently on the users, on those engaged users, right? Without depending on the click, right? Which we have established as a not very reliable intent source anymore. Cool. Another example is, and this is particularly useful for like, if you have like some sort of advertorial landing page, or maybe you have a web to app funnel that you're trying to leverage for your app, right? You can actually use what we call Video Plus Lander, which what it actually does, it embeds your landing page into the end card, in the end, right? So the flow that you showed the ad to the user, right? And before the user would click on the ad, they would get redirected to a landing page, taken out of the ad experience, redirected to the landing page on the native browser, whether that's Chrome, Safari, whatever it is. And then they would go through the whole flow, and then hopefully they convert, right? You can actually narrow that down, right, by introducing the whole landing page into the creative experience, right? And the interesting thing about this is that you can actually measure engagement, such as session duration. Like if you have like a like this sort of like quiz as well, or you have let's say an advertorial page, right? You can actually say how long have users stayed on the page, how deep did the user scroll on that page, right? It's as a measure of engagement, right? Whether they're actually engaged or not. And of course, any user interaction that happened on a quiz-like landing page that you may have. Again, QR code if you want to scan there. I'll be sharing the presentation afterwards for anyone who's interested. So yeah, this is some of the examples that I'm sharing with you on how, given the current situation with clicks and how diluted the meaning of the click as an intent signal actually is. How you can actually leverage interactive end cards or standalone interactive ads as well. You can use them standalone. You don't need to combine them with video if you don't want to actually capture engagement, right? And this really applies to a lot of verticals. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool overall. Cool, guys. Let's do some quiz. Because we actually have some t-shirts. We were supposed to have a t-shirt gun, but it actually broke. That was like a child dream of mine to actually fire a t-shirt gun, but I'm not going to be able to do that. But the winners of the quiz today will actually get a secure t-shirt. Who's ready to play? I don't know. Who's ready to play? Come on. Yeah, that's good. That's better. Let's do this. Take out your phones. So you can scan the QR code there. I think I can maximize this. That's probably better for you guys. We'll jump onto questions after the game. It's pretty short, don't worry. I give you maybe 20 more seconds. Oh, that's nice. I love the engagement. Talking about real engagement, here we are. Okay, I'm gonna count to 10. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Not only do you need to get the right answer, but you actually need to be quick, right? 3, 2, 1. What is the impact of increased adoption of high CTR video rendering in the industry? Pure user ad experience, cannibalization of organics, unclear engagement metrics, all of the options. This one should be pretty easy. All of the options, very good, very good. Just to clarify for anyone who has it, all of you were actually right? Because it's all of the options. But pure user ad experience, why? Because this, users are actually trying to exit the app and they cannot. Why? Because it's a very small skip button, full screen clickable. I'm trying to exit the app, but actually can't. I get shown multiple end cards. It's a never-ending story, right? So pure user ad experience. Cannibalization of organics, remember what we discussed around attribution. Unclear engagement metrics. 70% click-through rate, what is a click, right? All of the options. Moving on to the next one. Let's see who's Jen's son. Someone is son. The son is Sandy. The son came up in London. That's lovely. Which of the following engagement metrics cannot be captured by Kayzen's Video Plus interactive end cards? Scroll depth, SK overlay click, top timestamp, and quiz response in the quiz template. Very good. SK overlay click. So we have a couple of people that answered the other questions. Here, remember, the question is what cannot be measured, right? Scroll depth, when you have like an advertorial page, remember I mentioned that you can actually measure how deep on that landing page that the user scrolls down. So scroll depth can be measured. The top timestamp, the heat map. Remember, we saw the timestamp of when the user interacted with the ad. And finally, the quiz response on that Video Plus quiz. You could actually measure the responses that they have and actually use that to segment your users. So the SK overlay click is the only one thing that we cannot measure here, okay? Let's see. Oh, we had a shift. We had Sandy, Paul, D, Jules. Let's go to the last. This is the last one, right? Which of the following use cases is covered by Kayzen's Video Plus solution? Smart ad sequencing, heat map analysis, web to app funnels, all of the options. Are you guys playing? Very good. All of the options, right? We saw smart ad sequencing. We saw how we did that. Heat map analysis was actually the first use case that I shared. And then web to app funnels, for example, you can integrate your web landing page into the interactive end card. So all of the options is the right answer. So let's see who won. A little Jason Momoa for everyone. Let's see, number 3, Checker. Who's Checker? There you go, 1. Paul D. Who's Paul D? Where's Paul? There you go. Ready? Oh! And finally, Sandy. Where's Sandy? There you go, man. Good job, everyone. Good job.